Hi, my name is Nakaya, your teacher friend here, and I'm going through a list of some things you need to consider before becoming a teacher. So, over the years, there has been development in two areas, I believe, in teaching overall that needs to be looked at when you really consider teaching that people often don't think about. You really need to be a paperwork person and also a tech person. So, those are two things I want to consider briefly. So, when I say paperwork, I mean documentation. You have to be used to having paper trails for different things inside your classroom. So what do I mean by documentation? You might need documentation for special needs students. You need documentation when it comes to your lesson plans, incident reports, parent contact, clubs, organizations. You have to have some kind of documentation initiative about yourself because you need a paper trail for nearly anything and everything in education. Secondly, being a tech person, the pandemic has shown us that education has become interdependent with technology. We found out that technology cannot take the place of a regular teacher. So, in that sense, we need teachers to be highly tech savvy. And so, do you have experience with learning management systems? Do you know how to create and organize online community as well as have that in person class? It is important for you to become attuned with technology in that way. So think about those two things, becoming a paperwork and tech savvy person inside of the classroom. So the second thing you might want to consider is certification requirements. Every state is different in how they execute certification for their teachers, and in that system there is different routes that you can go. The first route is the traditional education route, where there is some kind of coursework that you do in your undergraduate years, and through that time you have certain academic coursework, you have certain practicum hours or basically practice hours in a classroom to complete. And then third, you have some kind of requirement by the state to take a test to become certified officially. And all that in the traditional route is done before you graduate. That's personally the route that I took. Then secondly, you have the alternate route certification process. It looks different state to state, but usually it's the same thing. It just happens after your undergraduate year. You have some kind of program, whether it's certification or MAT program, where you do coursework, you have practicum hours inside of a classroom, practicing and observing what you should know, and also a test of some sort that you need to do to get certified. And then thirdly, you have some kind of process like Teach for America, where you get the repayment of loans, and in return, they request you to work in a certain area that is high needs in the United States. And through that, you are able to, again, do some coursework, practice hours in the classroom. The only difference with this is usually you can work at the same time as you get the certification. For the traditional route, you don't work at the same time, and in some alternate route programs, you do work at the same time, but it's seldom in the experience that I know of. But with the Teach for America or like a state or something like that program where there's loan repayment, you are required to do so many years in a high needs area. But they give you the same things, and you also work to try and pass the test. But you happen to be teaching already. And the only stipulation to certification requirements is that a lot of states already have stipulations in place, so where you can teach before getting your certification or while you're working on it. However, there's usually a time stamp or expiration on that kind of process. You must eventually become certified if you plan to stay on the in the profession. So that is something to think about. So the next thing you might want to consider is the type of school you want to work for. So when I say that, what I mean is the three different types, major different types of school, because there's plenty, but there are three major different types of schools that exist within the American educational system. And those are private, public, and charter schools. And the thing about public schools is that they're the basics of what we understand American education to be. It's accessible to any child in the United States, and also, it is federally funded and state funded through tax dollars. It is heavily regulated through local, federal, and state laws. And it is open to the public, and it has to strive to meet the needs of all those different things, including the students and the communities and their parents that they come from, as well as all of those regulations and the policies that come attached to the dollars. So then you have charter schools, which are a mix of kind of private and public. And so they are held to a lot of the state and federal policies that are in place for education. They have to work within the means of state test requirements and things like that still. And they are, however, they are very flexible on the kind of techniques and approaches that they can have. They are able to kind of explore different avenues as far as leadership styles go. They're often smaller than other public schools. So those are some things to think about when it comes to teaching. And then you have private schools. Private schools are generally funded through donors and also through tuition payments from parents and their families of the students. It is not as regulated to be held to the same standards of federal and state policies. So they're pretty open in what they can do to meet a specific value or mission statement that they might have for the school. So that's why you see, religious private schools often mentioned in the conversation about private schools. So they have a lot of flexibility in what they want their kids to know, the curriculum that they have, the requirements that they have toward state, federal, local policies. So those are pretty much the difference, and they can make your teaching career look very, very different. So I recommend interviewing teachers who have experienced a lot of those environments and seeing the difference and internalizing it into your decision making about teaching. So the next thing you should consider is the job market. A lot of teachers don't really think about teaching in that respect because we think that there's a teacher shortage and everybody needs teachers. That's not necessarily true. High quality schools with high quality environments often have teachers stay for years and years on end. Teachers do not move from those spots. So sometimes the most requested schools can not have a requirement for whatever subject area you're certified in. Also, we have high need subject areas. So special education is struggling, especially with this teacher shortage right now. STEM, which is science and math, usually are struggling with staffing right now. You also have ESL or ESOL, which is teachers, second English language learners. Those are struggling with shortages in teaching right now. So you have to consider what areas that, again, you're certified in and what the demand is. Now, I am an English teacher and I have come in contact with highly competitive job markets in English teaching. I've seen it for history and I've also seen it for the arts and things like that. So, with that being said, you might want to be careful about who you apply to and what kind of job market exists there. And also, the great thing about educational system post pandemic is that it's opened up to a world of new schooling. So you have online learning, and then also different types of other kinds of schools like Montessori's that also take the place of those basic three types of schools that I told you. So those are some avenues you can look into also. Also know that you're the prize, right? So if there is a teacher shortage and if you know you have something to give, make sure you vet things thoroughly. Don't just take a position just because you're relieved to have it. Know your worth inside of it, of this job market. And good luck. So, lastly, I want you to consider having a mentor or a teacher friend. So, what I mean by that is you have somebody in your corner throughout the year because it's going to be a hard one, and you have someone to cry on who has a shoulder to cry on. You have someone who can give you help with academic resources or can point you into the right direction. Sometimes schools will give you a mentor. Sometimes you'll make your own teacher friends, but especially make sure that you have that as early on as possible. You'll need that person to lean on. And also be willing to be open to feedback from them and seek out feedback from others. No man is an island in education, and you need that team, whether it's for your subject area or it is for your grade level or it's just to get acclimated to the environment, whatever it may be, make sure you seek out those different things. And I wish you luck. If you see anything or have any questions about my experience with any one of these tips, I want to know what else do you want to see or need help with. Feel free to drop it below. Please subscribe because I have so much more information to give, and happy teaching. So lastly, I want you to consider having a mentor